Right, good afternoon everybody. I'm here to talk to you about reading. We're going to talk about reading skills. Okay, reading in English is very, very important and very, very difficult. Okay, so I want to give you some tips and strategies about how to read in English. Okay, so I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes or so just talking about these topics. Okay, first I want to discuss the difficulties and benefits of reading. What are the benefits for doing a lot of reading in English? And I'm going to explain to you how paragraphs are organized. This is very, very important because I think a lot of people in Taiwan, they don't really understand how English paragraphs are organized. And if you understand how an English paragraph is organized, then this will make your reading much faster and much easier. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Then I'm going to show you some strategies for skimming. Okay, skimming for gist means understanding the main idea. And you can see we have another word here, skimming and scanning. These are two very important reading skills that you will need to use in your studies in the future. For example, if you are doing IELTS, right, 雅思考, then you will need to learn how to use skimming and scanning. But even if you are not doing IELTS, these skills are still very, very useful and they will certainly help you in your future when you are studying abroad. Okay, I'm also going to show you some techniques for taking notes when you are reading and share some mind mapping with you. Okay, so first, I want to talk about the difficulties of reading. I know that reading in English is very difficult. How do I know? Because I know that reading in Chinese is very difficult. Right? When I'm reading in Chinese, I have the same difficulties that you have when you are reading in English. But actually, I think it's much easier for you guys to read in English than for me to read in Chinese. Anyway, here are some of the difficulties. The first one is boredom. 对不对? When you are reading a lot of English, you might think, oh my God, 这个好无聊, right? So how to deal with your boredom when you are reading? That's one of the difficulties. Another difficulty is length. Okay, maybe you will be very bored because there's so much that you have to read. The passage maybe is very long. So how do you deal with that? Another reason for boredom when you are reading is the topic. Maybe the topic is just very boring. You are not interested in the topic. Okay, so length and topic are some of the reasons for boredom. But you have to try to overcome your boredom when you are reading because there are many benefits, okay, which I will show you in a moment. Another difficulty of reading is language. 对不对? When you are reading English, you might encounter some very strange or difficult grammar. You might meet some very difficult sentences, long, complex sentences which have long, complex grammar, and that will be difficult for you to understand. And another big reason, of course, is vocabulary. This is the biggest problem, I think. When you are reading a lot in English, you will probably find lots of words that you don't know. If you are reading online, then maybe this is not a problem, because if you're reading online, you can click on the vocabulary that you don't know, and they will give you a translation or an explanation. Yeah? But certainly, if you're doing a lot of reading, you will find lots of very difficult and new vocabulary that you've never seen before. Now, another difficulty for reading that you might have is cultural reference. Right? Now, what does cultural reference mean? Cultural reference means when the writer mentions something in the culture. Right? They might mention some other famous writer, or they might mention some famous historical event. Or they might mention some other cultural thing, maybe a TV show or some current event happening in the news. And if you don't know the cultural reference, then this will be very difficult for you to understand the reading, 对不对? So cultural references are another reason why you might not understand something. Okay, a third difficulty is the difficulty of comprehension, how to understand what you are reading. And a big problem here is organization, right? How to understand the organization of what you are reading. Because the way that we organize information in English and the way that you organize information in Chinese is very, very different. And probably you never thought about this before, or maybe you just have no idea about this difference. So understanding the organization might be another reason why it's difficult for you to understand. Another difficulty is inferring attitude. And inferring attitude, what does this mean? Attitude means the feeling of the writer. Okay, if the writer is writing about a topic, let's say the writer is writing about something political, then you have to try to understand, is the writer feeling positive about this, or is the writer feeling negative about this topic? This is what we call attitude. And sometimes it will be very difficult for you to understand the attitude of the writer. Okay, inferring means guessing. 你猜, okay, 猜呢? So it means guessing the attitude of the writer. And how can we understand the writer's attitude? Is the writer feeling positive or negative about this topic? So this is another difficulty of comprehension. And there is one very important thing in English reading and writing, and this is what we call irony. Right? And irony, what does irony mean? Irony means when we use language to say the opposite of what we mean. Right? We use language to talk about the opposite of what we mean. Let me give you an example. For example, in England, right, in the UK, 我是英国人, right, 我住在英国. And in England, it rains all the time. Right? It rains all the time, kind of like Taipei. It rains all the time. And when it's raining, English people love to say to each other, hello, how are you? Isn't the weather lovely today? Right? And of course, this is irony, because when it's raining, the weather is not lovely, the weather is horrible. But we use irony in this way. And very often, when you are reading something, the writer will be using language ironically. The writer will be using irony to express the opposite of what they mean. And sometimes irony is very difficult to see, and that makes it hard also to understand the attitude of the writer. Maybe the writer says something and you think, oh, the writer's attitude is positive. But really, the writer's attitude is negative because the writer is using irony. Okay? So these are some of the main difficulties that I'm sure you have experienced yourselves when you are reading in English. Okay? So what can we do about these difficulties? Well, first, let's talk about the benefits. What are the benefits of reading in English? There are many, many benefits of constantly reading. Reading is the subject of a lot of research. Okay? Academics and scholars in university, they have done a lot of research into the benefits of reading. And here are some of the discoveries that they have made, the benefits of reading. The first benefit is proficiency. Proficiency means speed. Okay? And increased reading rate. If you read a lot, that means you will be able to read faster and faster and faster. The more you read, the faster you can read. And the faster you can read, that means you will not be so bored. Okay? Usually people feel bored when they are reading because it's very slow, right? But if you read more and more and more, you will be able to read faster and faster. And that's a benefit. Another benefit is increased accuracy of comprehension. The more you read, the easier it will be for you to understand more and more difficult texts, more and more difficult information. So reading practice helps you to understand more and more difficult things. Now here's a very interesting piece of research about reading. Researchers have discovered that the more you read, not only does this help your reading, but it also actually helps your overall language ability. So the more you read, the better your grammar will become. The more you read, the more vocabulary you will learn, and the more vocabulary you will remember. And also, reading a lot even helps speaking and listening. And we are not quite sure how this happens. We don't really understand what's happening in our brains when we're reading here, but we can measure, and we know for sure that people who read a lot of English also have very, very good speaking and listening skills as a result of their reading. And that, for me, is very, very important, I think, right? If you want to, what is the research telling us? The research is telling us that if you want to improve your grammar, vocabulary, your speaking and listening, and also your writing in English, what's the best way? People always ask me, teacher, how can I improve my English? How can I improve my English? I need to improve. And I always tell people, read. Okay? Read as much as you can, because reading will help you not only with your reading, but it would also help you with your writing, your speaking and your listening, and of course, your grammar and vocabulary. Okay? So, the benefits of reading are very, very clear. So I hope that will encourage you to read more and to read a little. You should read a little bit every day, right? You should try to read some English every day. Okay, now, what I want to do now is to move on and show you how to understand a paragraph organization. I want to show you how a paragraph is organized in English. Okay, now let's have a look at this diagram. This is actually the diagram of a typical paragraph in English. Okay, now probably you have heard your previous teachers or other teachers, they always mention the topic sentence. Okay, and the topic sentence is this one. This is the most general information in the paragraph. We always put the most general information in the paragraph at the top. Well, not always at the top, but somewhere near the beginning. But there must be a general topic sentence. Then, after you've written, or after you've got your topic sentence, there will be usually 3 or 4 specific details. Okay? There will be 3 examples or specific details of this general topic sentence. And then the specific details will include more and more specific details. Okay? So this is a kind of diagram of a paragraph. So let me show you how this works in practice. Here's a text. Okay? And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to read this text. Okay? So just take like 3 or 4 minutes to read this text. Now, don't worry about the difficult vocabulary, okay? Don't worry about the topic. I know the topic is a little bit boring. It's about tax, right? But it's a very important topic, especially this month. Okay, now let's have a look at this text, and let me show you how this diagram works in this text, okay? For example, we can see that the key word is taxation. The general topic is about taxation. And the text tells us a definition of taxation, right? It tells us that taxation is how the state raises money. Okay? And then we have this sentence here. Look, there are three main types of taxation. So here we have our first specific detail of taxation. Taxation is very general, but personal income tax, this is an example, a specific example of one kind of tax. So personal income tax is this block of information here. And then it will give us more specific details about personal income tax, right? Which is charged on the money which people earn from their jobs, right? Okay, the second specific example is corporate tax. Another kind of tax is called corporate tax. Okay, so this is the second specific example. So we are now here. This is the second specific example, and the text will give us more specific details of this. Okay, so we have corporate tax is tax paid by businesses and corporations on the profits. So we have an explanation, more details of corporate tax. Okay, now what about the third one? We have another one, value-added tax. And this is the third specific example. We are over here now, right? And we're going to have some more specific details of taxation, value-added tax. So you can see that the paragraph is very clearly organized with very general information at the beginning and then 3 or 4 supporting points. And this is very, very useful to understand and very useful to remember when you are reading information, especially if you have to read a lot of information for your studies, right, in your textbook or your course book, or you have to read academic papers, right? It's very useful to remember this model, this structure when you are reading. And this will help you to read much faster and much more efficiently. Okay, so this is how we organize paragraphs. Now, let's move on and let's talk about skimming for gist. What does skimming for gist mean? Skimming means reading very, very quickly to get the main idea. Right? So it means reading very, very quickly just to understand the main idea. When you are skimming, you are not focusing on details. You are not focusing on specific information. Okay? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to skim this paragraph here. What is the main idea? Now, when you are skimming this paragraph, try to remember this. Try to remember this model when you are skimming. What's the main idea? What are the 3 supporting points? Okay? So I'll give you a few moments to read, to just skim very quickly. Okay, so what's the main topic? We can see that the main topic is about volcanoes, right? And the text tells us that there are 3 types of volcanoes. And then we have some specific examples of 3 types of volcanoes: extinct, dormant, and active. And then the text tells us a little bit more information about extinct volcanoes. Okay? And it gives us a little bit of information about what an extinct volcano is. Then if you keep skimming, you'll see the next one, a dormant volcano. And if you keep skimming, you'll see there another one, an active, the third one, active volcano. So you can see the paragraph is organized very clearly with the general idea at the top. The general idea is about volcanoes. And then 3 common types of volcanoes with some specific information. So if you skim very quickly, then you will also know which information is important and which information is not important. Maybe, for example, you are only interested in one kind of volcano. You only want to get information about this particular kind of volcano. So when you're skimming, you can read very, very quickly just to understand the main idea. You know, very often in life, we don't need to read everything, right? You can just skim very quickly. Okay? So later in the summer, on the 5th of June, July, right? Sorry, 5th of July. I'm going to be teaching reading skills in Apex, in Dunfong. So if you want to know more, you can come and learn more about how to read. Okay? Now I'm going to show you now some notes, how to take notes when you are reading. And I know that many people like to take notes in a line. They make a list of topics. People make a list of notes. But this is not so good, I think. The best way to take notes is to make your notes very similar to this diagram, right? And we call this mind mapping. Okay, this is information about how the information is stored in your mind. Okay, so you can make your mind map just like the same diagram. So I'll show you an example here. This is one of my mind maps from my own reading, right? I'm studying Buddhism, so this is a mind map of an article that I read. And you can see that the information is not organized in a line, but it's organized in terms of paragraphs. Okay, now let's move on, and we're going to look at how to scan for details. Okay, so earlier I was talking to you about skimming. Now we're going to talk about scanning. What's the difference between skimming and scanning? Skimming is, as I said earlier, skimming is about how to get the main idea, the gist, the main idea of your text that you are reading. Scanning is different. Scanning also is reading very, very quickly, but scanning is about trying to focus on specific details. Okay, and for scanning, you don't need to read every word, you just focus on the details that you want to read. Okay, so really, when you are scanning, you have to be a little bit like a detective. And you'll see who's this guy here? This is Sherlock Holmes, right? And he's got this magnifying glass. And this magnifying glass is a very good image for scanning. Right? When you have a magnifying glass, you can see the information that you want very, very clearly. And the other information is not important. Okay? So, here's an example of scanning. But I don't know if you can see that. That's probably much too short, too small, right? Can you see that? This is a job offer. Okay? They are looking for Christmas opportunities. Now, when you see a job offer like this, of course, you don't read every single word, right? You don't start here, read the next word, Christmas job, it's a job, right? You don't read every word. What do? You look for the information which is important for you. So, for example, let's say that you want to know, when does the job start? When is the starting date for the job? So you will just have a look very, very quickly, and you will see here, starts from late November until the end of December. Okay? So the rest of the information you don't need to read. You just try to find the information that you need, the details that you need. Another example, let's say you want to know how much will they pay. If you do this job, how much will they pay? So again, you don't read every single word, you just look very quickly and you find any information about payment. And you can see here, £4.80 per hour, £6.10 per hour. So this is the hourly rate for the payment. So scanning for detail information is like this. You don't read every word, you just look through the text very, very quickly to find the information that you are looking for, the details that you are looking for. Okay? So that's skimming and scamming. So I've just been talking to you about these things, right? About the difficulties and benefits of reading, yeah? How to understand paragraph organization. We've talked about the difference between skimming for gist and scanning for details, and how to take notes and do mind mapping when you are reading. Okay, now if you come to the summer course that the lady was just mentioning before, thank you, you will learn more about these kind of reading skills, and you will have lots and lots of practice and more information, and this will make your reading much more effective, we can say much more professional. You'll be able to read much easier, and that will also benefit your English generally. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention, everybody, and good luck with your future studies. 谢谢。好，谢谢大家。Thank you.